Dream a little dream of me. Welcome Kinders, it's Jessica the Story Witch, and I'm going to do something that I haven't done before on my channel. I'm going to review a book which I actually do not recommend. So I bought this book a little while back after seeing it on Instagram. And let's do the good points first. The actual packaging of this book is phenomenal. It looks beautiful. It's kind of smallish format. If I show you like my hand, let me grab my journal. Most likely you might already have it because, you know, it's the same, it's kind of A5 size. It's a little bit smaller than a lot of the books that you get, a lot of craft books that you get. And it has got a gorgeous spine. The feel of the cover, it's kind of like matte with this gorgeous sort of embossed writing on the front of it, and gorgeous green end papers. And for the price of what you're paying for it, you know, it's good value in that it is a gorgeous book in that respect. And you know, it's really beautifully done. Although I will say, I don't know if you can tell there from the way the light is shining on it, but the font in this book is beautiful. But the choice of ink, struggling for my words today, sorry about that guys, the ink colour is not black, it is grey, and I think that is the same for the Kindle version, which makes it, one of the people in the book club that I've been reading it with, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on as well, is that it makes it really hard to read. And on Kindle, especially if you have got like a paperweight and it's not it doesn't show up very well, so it's not even very useful for people, especially if they've got sight problems and things like that, which is another irritating thing. But yes, looks absolutely beautiful, highly Instagrammable. And from the outside, the tagline for this is your complete guide to the natural magic of herbs, flowers, essential oils and more. The author is Arin Murphy-Hiscock. And yeah, like I said, I bought this book a little while back now. I had a little flick through and thought, yeah, I'll have a read of that at some point. It doesn't look like it's going to be a particularly long read, you know, you could easily get through it quite quickly. And then I just kind of put it to one side, to be honest, because I had other things on my TBR pile which were calling me a lot more strongly. And then I joined Avalon Cameron's, the wonderful Avalon's gorgeous witchy book club, which is not called Witchy Book Club because that's Sammy's Witchy Book Club, and she's also talked about this book, so you can go and see what the people in Sammy's book club had to say about it, because that is here on YouTube. Avalon's club is for people who are on her Patreon page. It's a $3 a month pledge to be part of the Witchy Book Club, which I think is worth it, to be honest. So we've been talking about that in the book club, and lots of people have been saying very similar things, really, in that it was a disappointment, it was a letdown, because after all the gorgeous promise of the outside, the inside is disappointing. It is separated into two sections, there's two parts. Let me just bring the contents page up. And it does have an index and a bibliography and things like you would expect in a book like this. Part one is Discovering the Green Witch, and that is mainly the kind of theory part of the book. And then part two is Walking the Green Path, which is more of the practical part of the book. The second part is actually not as frustrating as the first part because it is more like practical exercises, which is cool. Now, when I first started kind of flicking through it and reading some of it, I thought this is all sounding a little bit familiar. And so I did a little bit of Googling. And actually, this book is like a reissue, a repackaging of a book that was actually out about 12 or so years ago. It's out of print now, and if you try and buy a copy of it, it would cost you a lot of money because you'd have to buy it through third-party sellers kind of thing. So what I feel has happened here, and that is why I'm talking about this on here. Like I said, I normally would prefer not to talk about books that I don't recommend. I would just put them to one side, you know. But I did feel this was important to say because it is part of the whole kind of marketing aspect to witches, which I feel like is a thing at the moment. So this was a book originally published. It doesn't say anything about it in the inside of here, but if you look her up, the author up on Amazon, you can see it says contains material adapted from the following title published by Adams Media, The Way of the Green Witch, which was in 2006. So they've taken that, they've kind of updated little bits of it, well, she's updated little bits of it, and made it less Wiccan in influence, although there are some very Wiccan, like there's an oath to the Lord and Lady in here. She's like, you don't need to swear an oath to be a green witch, and then she's saying, if you'd like to swear an oath, here's an oath. And there's just things like that through this book which are like, what, you know. And also in the book club, people were drawing attention to the fact that it says your complete guide to the natural magic, and obviously, you know, it's a small book, it's never going to be a complete guide to anything, and certainly not to your complete guide of natural magic, herbs, flowers, essential oils. I've got massive books just on each of those individual topics, you know, so it's not going to be a complete guide. So that should have been a little heads up from the start. The other thing I thought was weird is that on the back, and there's no real like about me, about the author, it says Arin Murphy-Hiscock is an author who's been active in the field of alternative spirituality for more than 20 years. She lives in Montreal, Canada. And that's it. There's no other information about the author at all. And I thought, how weird. It doesn't even say like that she's a witch or anything like that, you know. So weird. Definitely feels like they've had this kind of title sat in there. Oh gosh, the light is going bonkers here now. This is shining in. Sorry. I will be a ghost, but you'll just have to bear with me. I feel like I'm jumping around everywhere with this review either. I did prepare for it quite well, but I didn't want to be reading my notes, so I'm sorry. I hope they're still going to make sense and everything. I am jumping around a little bit. But yeah, it feels to me like the publisher has had this kind of backlist title sat there for a while, and they've seen the current kind of thing with lots of other witch books that are doing very well at the moment and earning their publishing houses quite a lot of money, and they've thought, hey, let's jump on that bandwagon, and they've repackaged this in a really gorgeous way that has appealed to lots and lots of people. And why wouldn't it? Because it looks amazing. They also, if you look on Amazon, there's more of her titles, which are also old books, which they're repackaging, coming out over the next, I think one is due out in the autumn and another one early next year. There's going to be The Kitchen Witch. There's going to be, what was the other one called? I can't remember what the other one was called. But basically old titles repackaged, but they're all going to look very similar. So can you imagine the three of those all nestled together on your bookshelf? Very, very nice. It's cynical, I feel. I do really feel that it's the sort of book which is nice to look at, but you're not really getting a whole lot out of when you read. That said, the information contained within here, that what the information there is, because there is not a whole lot, is not wrong per se. You know, it's not saying do things that are not, that won't actually do anything, you know, but it is just super, super basic. And it is, oh gosh, I got a fly flying around here now as well. it's, let me find a bit for you and read you some. Because the other thing that winds me up about this as well, oh here we are, I did mark one off to read for you. So here's a little part in the section called Working with Green Energy. A large part of the Green Witch's path consists of using the natural energies contained within plants and trees to attain a certain goal, be it medicinal or magical. Those who follow a path linked to natural magic have long known that we can weave these energies into our everyday life to harmonise ourselves or others with the energy flow of the world around us. Wonderful, yeah, totally on board with that. Training yourself to work with these energies takes more than memorising a list of correspondences. As always, hands-on experience is the best way to learn how you work most effectively. Interacting with a plant while it is still growing and interacting with its energies after it has been harvested will give you a good idea of what this plant can be used for and to what applications its energy is best suited. Yes, totally. I'm all happy with all of that. Books on herbs, flowering plants, indoor and outdoor plants and trees can be useful as references and general guides, but ultimately your energy readings and your instinct will determine how you can best use the energies of the natural world. And then, it happens all the way through the book. Please note that I'm referring to the magical application of these items, not medicinal applications. To become competent in herbal medicine, you must take accredited courses in medicinal herbalism and or work responsibly with a reliable book. And that kind of disclaimer element to it, it's like she's saying stuff, and then she'll say, but you need to do something else before you can do that. And it feels disempowering to me, and that is what gets on my nerves most about this book. It's not so much the content, like I said, which is not necessarily wrong, but it is the style. There's loads of musts, shoulds, one must do this, and it just comes across as being really like I say, disempowering. So it's like, oh, you could do this, but actually you're going to need to do a course before you can do that. Or you could do this, but you're going to need a different book. Not this book, even though it's the complete guide. You're going to need to go and get a different book. You know, it's those kind of things which are really frustrating. There are little good bits in there as well. I liked her talk about when she talks about altars and shrines, and she talks about the difference between altars and shrines. So like an altar is more like a working space where you will actually be making things, doing working, stuff like that. Whereas shrines are more a kind of a shrine to maybe a particular element or to a deity or whatever it is you want to make a shrine to. So I think that's a useful distinction, and one that isn't necessarily talked about all the time in books as well. She talks about, you know, it's just all very basic stuff. Like she talks about making your home a sacred space, and she says things like keep it clean and don't have stuff that you don't need. You know, it's just like there are better resources than this book for all of the things that she's talking about in this book. That is the sad fact of the matter. So even though it's beautiful, I really can't recommend it. If you are looking for a book, and that is one of the things that's come up in the book club as well, is that people are saying after reading it, they're still no clearer on what a green witch actually is, and whether, you know, whether that whole distinction of a green witch is even useful. You know, she takes great pains in this book to say, like, a green witch, it doesn't matter where you are, you can be a green witch anywhere, which is fine, which is great, you know, yes, true. I think what she means by green witch is like a witch that connects with nature. Is that not all witches? You know, this is exactly the problem, is that, like, who is this book for? Who is it for? Complete beginners, but then there are better resources. Green witches, but then she doesn't define what a green witch actually is. Instagrammers. That's who this book is for, you know. That is that's going to be the best use for this book, is for looking at, because the information within it, the exercises within it still, you know, they're fine, but they're just meh, you know. She talks about sitting with plants and things and kind of communing with plants. Yeah, definitely, I'm on board with that, but it's basic. It's the stuff that you will find anywhere, and it's not green witch specific, whatever that means, whatever she means by that. So I've kind of slated it. There are some useful-ish bits as well. I folded down one corner. Oh, you can't even see it now because of the light. But I folded down the little bit where she talks about resins, because that was actually quite useful. She talked about grinding up resins and things like that. But I'm sure she will have said, this feels like loads of health and safety announcements throughout the book, you know, as if the publishers don't want to get sued if you try something in there, and then like, but they told me to do that in this book, you know. It does really feel like that. So yeah. it's not, there are better things, and I keep saying there are better things, and so I knew I was going to be saying that, so I pulled out a couple of other books which, if you are interested in a green witch path, to be honest, I think it's just a witch path. You know, we are connecting as witches. My definition of witches is definitely one that connects with nature. So another thing that riled me up about her, actually, and this might have been what that third book was about, one of her earlier books is as well, she talks in the book about different kinds of witchcraft at the beginning, and she mentions a hedge witch as being like somebody who works with herbs and stuff like that, and totally skirts over the fact that the hedge in hedge witchery is that shamanic journey. Maybe not even shamanic, that's also using kind of culturally appropriative kind of label for it, but it's that kind of trance journeying, you know, the crossing the hedge, the going to different worlds. She doesn't even touch on that, you know. It just feels lazy. It feels lazy and contrived and cashing in and cynical. Alternatives. Let me grab some. So what I've dug out as alternatives, these are books that I've had quite a long time as well, and were kind of fairly contemporary with when she would have been bringing out that first book. So I've got some of Kate West's books here. This is The Real Witch's Garden and The Real Witch's Kitchen. Notice no mention of green witches. Now, I mentioned these within Avalon's book club, and one of the other lovely people in the book club said she went to look at the Amazon reviews and stuff on these books, and people were saying they're very Wiccan in focus, and by that it means that like they're structured around the Wiccan Wheel of the Year and this, you know, around the Sabbats and things like that. And that is true to a certain extent, but I still feel like the information contained in here is useful for the witch who is looking to live her magic, that everyday magic, you know, because it talks about how, you know, what we consume is part of our magic as well, you know, and it talks about designing your garden in a way that will make it good to use for workings and things like that. So this book is not as good. The best one I feel is, the most useful one that I have found is this Real Witch's Garden, and I still do come back to this and use it for when I move to like a new place and things like that, and if I'm doing a bit of garden designing, then I will look in this book for ideas. So yeah, they're good. But if you were going for a more kind of traditional witchcraft perspective, then another book which is excellent for connecting with the land that you're on. Both of his books are good for this actually, but Nigel Pearson, I reviewed this on the channel, so I'll link that down below. This is Walking the Tides, Seasonal Magical Rhythms and Lore. This couldn't be further away from the Green Witch than you could get, really, to be honest. You know, this one is very much style over substance. Well, this one's not unstylish, but there's a lot of substance in here, so this is fantastic. His other book as well, Treading the Mill, is wonderful from a traditional craft perspective, connecting with the place, the land, connecting with that area which you are rooted, you know. So I do feel bad. I hate, because I know, like, as a writer myself, I hate it when people give me bad reviews. I hate it. I'm like, oh, you know, it breaks your heart. And I don't want to be sending her that sort of feeling at all. I feel more like it's the publishers, and it's a way of cashing in on this kind of current green witch trend, which does seem to be going around at the moment. The other book that, well, all of Anne Mora's books, you will have probably seen my unboxing perhaps of the Green Witch Tarot, which the lovely Ashley at Ashley Addleton sent me a little while back now. I've been really enjoying using that deck. And that deck is by Anne Mora. And again, you can't really see the thing of this. These books are quite old, guys, and I may be out of print now, I don't know, perhaps. But you might, you know, you can probably pick up second-hand copies of these. She's got lots of books on green witchcraft. Again, from an eclectic Wiccan perspective. She's not an initiated Wiccan, Anne Mora, but she does still use certain of the holidays and things like that, and she still talks about the god and goddess and stuff like that. So it is Wiccan leaning, but she has lots of books about this subject. I will say that I feel some of the history, even though I think she's a high school history teacher as well as being a witch, but the history in her books is a little bit story based rather than info based. But the content and the exercises, and to be honest, just the way that she writes is so much more empowering, because the way she writes about it, she is writing about it from her own perspective, the same as Nigel Pearson writes about it from his own perspective, the same as Kate West writes about it from her own perspective. And you read it and you think, yeah, you know, I want to do this. I want to take this information further. Whereas with the Green Witch, all I was doing was reading stuff and I was like, yes. Even when she's saying stuff that I really agree with. Like, well, in lots of places she says stuff that I really agree with. But somehow the way that she's saying it is just... it makes me feel disempowered. Like I've already said this. Another thing that annoys me a little bit about this book is every now and again, on, you know, every couple of pages, there'll be these little like inset sections. Let me see if I can find one. No, sod's law now, I won't be able to. They are all over the place in here. She also has like some lists of correspondences and things in here, which is totally fine. It's just all, everything here, you're going to need to go somewhere else to find out more. It's not, it couldn't be further from a complete anything. So, oh gosh, you're not going to see that at all now. It's so bright in here today. Well, it wasn't when I started recording, but it is now. So it's on this page I'm trying to show you, and I can't quite do that. So can you see this like a little inset section? So, but they're not quotes. Like you would expect that maybe to be like a quote from a different author, which would be nice, you know, to have seen something else. But actually, it's like little quotes from herself. And it's like setting it apart as if it's like more important information than the rest of it somehow. Like for example, this one says, in ancient cultures, the seasons were often named according to the natural phenomena of the geographic location, and were often calculated through observation of the movements of stars and planets, or events such as flooding or the movements of herds. Today, in some areas, the seasons are classified by temperature, the hot season, the cold season, or by meteorological events, the rainy season, the dry season. You know, it's just, it's information that you can get absolutely anywhere. And somebody in Avalon's Witchy Book Club said that it's like a series of blog posts, and that is what it's like. It's all like, it's very easy reading. And I'm not necessarily saying don't read it, you know. I'm like, I expect most libraries and stuff will cover it, will carry it, because it's been so well marketed, so it's a very popular book. But it's not inspiring. And if you're going to spend your time, your precious time, reading something, then wouldn't it be better if it was inspiring? And I've decided that I am going to give this copy away. Like I said, I've read through it twice. I have folded down one corner, so if that is going to bother you, then maybe don't say you want it. I can't even show you now that I folded down that corner. Basically just one very neatly folded down corner. I haven't made any notes on it or anything, so it's in good condition. You know, I've read through it twice, but I'm not much of a spine bender. I am quite a neat reader, so it's still in pretty good nick. I'm going to give that away, so if you do want to read it, although maybe no one will say they want to now after I've just like spent 20 minutes slating it, but you might want to, because my opinion of it is not very high, you might really like it. So, you know, say if you want it. And I've also have something else linked to this, which I'm going to give away as well, which is my copy of the Herbal Tarot. Oh, my phone's giving me a little message, sorry. It's this deck I bought a while back, and it just is so cheesy. Let me get out a couple of cards to show you. You know, this is not a new deck. It looks really, it just looks very 70s porn to me. Some of the imagery in here is really, it's a Rider-Waite deck, you know, it's really recognisable Rider-Waite, but then they've weaved in the plants and the trees and things into the pictures, and that's cool. That's why I bought it, because it actually tells you the names of the plants on the pictures, which is lovely. But I'm just not using it. I don't feel connected to it, so I think it would be best if I would pass that on. It does come with a little white book. I did buy, there's another handbook you can buy to go with it, which I bought, but I'm actually going to keep that because I think the information in that book is actually okay, so I want to keep hold of that. But there is a little white book which has, you know, oh, that's really not showing at all, I'm sorry, but like little bits of information about each of the cards and the herbs and things in there. So if you're interested in that kind of herbal path, then you might want a copy of that. So I'm gonna say, I'm not going to send these things together necessarily to the same person unless there's just one person who wants them. So if you say in the comments whether you would like my copy of this or whether you would like my copy of that, perhaps it will just be like one person saying it, I don't know. I'll post it on my Instagram as well. I may as well get my Instagram bang for my buck out of this. Say if you'd like the book or if you'd like the tarot, and I will send it to you. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. I just want to do that because I'm not connecting with either of these things, so it's better for them to go to a good home where perhaps you will. That was so rambly for a review. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to film like about 12 videos today, and it could well be that my brain is not up to the task. So anyway, let's leave it there. Warmest blessings. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Da, da, da.